Singapore is located over here in South Asia. Singapore is located over here along the Malay Peninsula, covered by Malaysia to the north and the ocean to the south. Singapore is mainly an island country. It has beautiful landscapes and lots of things to do. The capital of Singapore is Singapore. Singapore got its name when a well-known hunter saw a lion-like creature in the woods. He then named the place Singapura, meaning Lion City. Singapore has had a rough history. Singapore was invaded by the Portuguese. The Portuguese burned down a trading port called Temasek, a major part of the Singapore economy. A while later, in the colonial times, the British East India Trading Company took over. Singapore became part of the Straits Settlement, which is pretty much every country along the Malaysian Peninsula. During World War II, the Japanese occupied and took over Singapore for nearly 3 years. Once the war ended, the British regained control of Singapore, and then, after a while of rebuilding it back together piece by piece, allowed it to have its own independent government. With the help of the People's Action Party, PAP, Singapore had a vote of whether or not to become its own country. Singapore became its own country with a landslide amount of votes. This pretty much sums up Singapore's history, but now let's look at the other things that you should know about Singapore. Singapore's flag means many different things. The red on the top that you see here means universal brotherhood and equality of man. The white means pervading and everlasting purity and virtue, which means it will be everlastingly, forever, pure. The waxing crescent moon represents a young nation on the ascendant. The 5 stars stand for the nation's ideals of democracy, peace, progress, justice, and equality. One adjective for each star. During the second half of the 20th century, the star and crescent symbol have become a symbol of Islamism. Now let's move on to the leaders of Singapore. Singapore is a closely related government to the British because the British owned them for so long. The president, which is mainly ceremonial, is Tony Tan Keng Yam. The Prime Minister, which is actually in charge of the government and not the state, is Lee Hsien Loong. These are both the leaders of Singapore. Let's move on to the types of clothing now, shall we? There are many different types of clothing because there are so many different ethnicities in Singapore. There's no one certain type of Singaporean person. There are 3 main types of dresses depending on the main 3 types of ethnicities. To the far left is the Chinese Xiang Sam. In the middle is the Malaysian Baju Kurung, and to the far right are the Indian Saris. There were a lot of tourist spots in Singapore. I'll just name 2. One of them is one of the highest observatories in Singapore, the Tiger Sky Tower. This tower is a 110-meter tall spinning tower. You go inside the top little disc, and it brings you and spins you all the way up like a spinning elevator all the way to the top so you can look out over Singapore. The next tourist spot I'm going to talk about are the Singapore Botanical Gardens. These gardens have many different types of wildlife native to only Singapore. This place has many other attractions, such as their very, very, very popular Burke Hill Hall and VIP Orchid Garden. The Orchid Garden you have to pay to get into, but trust me, it is definitely worth it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video all about the wonderful country of Singapore. Sorry, I'm hungry. I'm gonna go get myself a snack.